Hey, it's me, Ivan Hunt, host of the talk radio show and now video show called Keep It Moving. And my guest this week is April Diane, coming straight up out of Queens, New York. And she is a queen herself. I've had the fortunate opportunity to also be on her show, which I'm sure she'll make mention of. So you can check her podcast out as well. But without further ado, April Diane, good Sunday afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, Ivan. I am thankful for today and really honored to be a guest on your show. So thanks for having me.
Cool deal, and my pleasure. I know that you're a wellness person, lack of a better term. So what exactly is your definition of wellness?
Balance, in essence. Mind, body, and soul balance. That's my definition of wellness.
Mind,
the experience, experiencing a state of homeostasis within your being, where you have a good amount of energy, your body is speaking to you and you're listening and it's sending clear messages to you and you're able to respond. That's wellness.
And what drove you in that direction to make this your calling or passion or purpose in life?
That's a great question, actually. I myself experienced anxiety and depression, and I didn't really know that. I didn't know what exactly I was experiencing. I just took some inventory and began to identify certain patterns that were in my life that I was encountering, and did a little bit of research, and it matched up with those two symptoms that's what they basically are, that we've labeled them as anxiety and depression.
Right. And I suffer from mood disorders, so I've been identified ADHD, bipolar, borderline personality disorder. So I have an appreciation for what it is you do as far as health and wellness is concerned, and the positive impacts it can have on your life. So where does creating the habit of wellness start with someone who may suffer from depression or anxiety?
Wellness starts in your mind. It starts with a decision that something has to change. It starts with making you a priority and your overall well-being a priority. You have to take inventory of yourself.
Now, that's the second time you use the word inventory. So what exactly do you mean by take inventory of yourself? What are you counting? So is it like an inventory at Walmart or Walgreens, or what is inventory to you?
It's a lot of different things that make up your inventory: your meal plan, your lifestyle in general. So how you're eating, your feeling, how you're feeling. If there are patterns, like we have patterns, whether we've consciously created the patterns or whether we've unconsciously just regurgitated patterns that were kind of passed down to us. Okay. So the inventory to me would be like, how are you feeling? How is your life shaping? Are you experiencing a nice flow and ease in your life? Are you happy? Are you enjoying life? That would be also some inventory. What are your relationships like in your life? Because a lot of what's happening on the inside is being reflected in your reality. So that to me would be how you take inventory, identifying your patterns and seeing, are you actually able to live a life that you're happy to live with the habits and the behaviors that you are engaging in every day?
I think it was back in March, and it was the second time I've gone to this event, and it was actually the second annual. I went to the World Happiness Summit down here in Miami, and it's really kind of unique when you hear of happiness spoken of from an academia perspective and a scientific perspective. How does then that align with being in touch with yourself? How do you get in touch with yourself and learn the language of your body, your mind, soul, and spirit?
You have to listen. You have to pay attention to how you're feeling. You have to receive the feedback that you're getting. You know, basically it's you're observing yourself.
Right.
There are patterns. I can't stress that enough. Like, you really have to pay attention to the patterns, the type of relationships you're attracting, whether they're friendships or romantic or otherwise. Those things are important for you to do. So, key being, you have to listen to your life.
One of my experiences has been, as far as is knowing, the term that pops in my head is emotional intelligence, right? And knowing, you know, when you start listening to yourself and listening to your body, but actually being able to articulate it to yourself. How does that play into your message?
Being able to articulate it. Well, you know, in my book, the first book that I wrote, The Greatest Gifts of All, which to me are awareness, self-love, and faith. And when I really first started to become aware that there was a pattern in my life, you know, when I started to become aware that life wasn't happening to me, life was happening through me, right? And that about the whole concept of perception, that I was perceiving life in a certain way and I was responding to life in a certain way. I started to realize that one main thing is that people treat you how you allow them to treat you, and life treats you how you're treating yourself. It's the same thing. And I mention all of that because oftentimes, you know, when we are feeling like, you know, in the victim mode, because if you're not taking care of yourself, right, if you're not really making yourself a priority, you begin to have some negative beliefs about life. You start to feel like, you know, maybe resentment towards others. You start to feel maybe underappreciated. You start to feel, you know, like life is against you. Let's say that, right? But the thing is that you're not listening to you, but you're expecting others to listen to you. So that's one of the main things that I talked about in my book, was that, you know, life was feeling just, I wasn't thrilled about it on some levels. Like, I was making it through, and I'm generally an optimistic person.
Right.
You know, I really am at the core of me. But when I would go home at night and be with myself, I would still feel like this kind of a void that was in my life. Something to me was missing, right? And it was like I wasn't being able to take my happiness with me, you know, when I was with myself. And it was because I wasn't listening to myself. And so that's my message in my book, is that sometimes we want the world to listen to us, to hear us, to hear our concerns. Maybe it's our moms or our dads or our significant others or our children, or just people to know what we need. But we're not really in tune with that for ourselves.
Right.
You know, we're not in tune with what our heart is speaking to us. We're not paying attention to how we feel. We're not even honoring how we feel. And I'm talking like really small things. So we want to bring it back to wellness. I'm talking about when you're thirsty. Do you drink some water? Do you honor your body by drinking water? You know, or do you put it off until the point of dehydration? When you're hungry, do you allow yourself to eat something nutritious, or do you just keep pushing? How about rest? When you need to rest and your body tells you to rest, do you rest? Or do you just say, oh, I got to get this stuff done, I got to just keep going? And then the biggest one that I've noticed with children and some adults even, when you have to eliminate and go to the bathroom, do you stop what you're doing and go and allow your body to eliminate and use the restroom, or do you hold it? And the reason why I mention all of those things is because that's your body communicating to you its needs. When you have a sensation, a message of needing to relieve yourself, of being hungry or thirsty, and or tired, and you ignore those messages, you're ignoring your body's communication. When you have a feeling about something, like, let's say you don't want to go somewhere, or you don't really care for someone, or you don't want to do something for someone because it compromises your well-being, and you do it anyway, that's
Right.
you not listening to you. And so that's where your wellness starts, with those simple things. If you're ignoring those messages your body is sending you, your life is reflecting that too.
Mm.
People are doing that to you too. You know, people will do that. People will treat you how you treat you. Life will treat you how you treat you.
I like that. I like what you said, that, you know, a lot of times people expect others to listen to them, but they don't listen to themselves. Yeah, and I like that. I remember a period of my time where, where I learned self-respect and I learned self-love. And it was during that time where I realized, okay, if I won't do it to me, then I won't allow anybody else to do it to me either. You know, I won't allow anybody to disrespect me if I'm not disrespecting myself. And a term that I came up with, or analogy, is, leverage. Boundaries without leverage is no boundaries at all.
Okay.
And so, sort of like what you're saying, if you don't listen to yourself, right, and if you don't treat yourself a certain way, then others, the way they treat you is a reflection of how we take care of ourselves. Life is a reflection of how we take care of ourselves. So if you don't enforce those boundaries, by leveraging your own personal well-being, then you can't expect anybody else to treat you accordingly. So I love your message, but I want to know a little bit more about you, and what do you see as a minority woman, right? And wellness within our community, and is there an understanding of the importance of wellness in our community?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I think in theory we do understand it, but we have to kick up the practice. Like, we've made it secondary. Many people in quote unquote minority communities learn their self-development and their self-care from religious institutions. And not all, I'm not saying all, but many. Whether it's directly or indirectly, meaning whether there's somebody there's usually the leaders in different communities. They start their foundation in church many times. That's where they build their influence, by being a part of some sort of organization. It doesn't necessarily have to be a church, some sort of an organization. So whatever principles are adopted in that organization, that's kind of what's reflected in the community, in the family, in the household. So because they have influence, not necessarily because what they're speaking is truth, but because enough people are listening to them and the resources and revenue comes from there. So people listen sometimes as a result of just needing to survive. They'll adopt your principles and stuff because maybe they don't know about their own power and their own abilities. They don't have enough belief in themselves and their abilities. So then they adopt the beliefs of whoever is the dominant voice in the community, right? Whoever has the most influence meaning the most resources, and so on, So a lot of times people are taught to give. And I'm talking, when we talk about minorities and you're speaking about women in general, that's the biggest message that we've gotten. And I'll speak for myself personally. I was a part of a church when I grew up. My family still is big into church, and I'm not against churches. That's not what I'm saying. Right. I'm just saying that sometimes in churches we're taught to give. It's better to give than it is to receive. Right. And I think that we're missing understanding that message a little bit. You have to give to yourself also. in order for your being to receive from your being as well. And it's important to give from your saucer, not your cup. I've seen so many people get to the point of depletion, and then now they're like, well, now who's going to help me? Who's going to give to me? But if you were doing for yourself what you're doing for everyone else, you wouldn't be as needy about it. You would be able to do, if there would be a balance in place. So I think that's my biggest message to women in general. You have to take care of yourself in order for you to be able to take care of others. And we've seen this message time and time again. When we talk about the airplanes, you got to put the mask on yourself first in order to be able to help the people next to you. If you don't have oxygen and vitality, how can you give that?
Right. And that's a great point. My wife and I actually, two things real quick. And I went to a seminar last weekend, and I met a gentleman there. He was running one of the little tracks, and he gave a story about his employees, and some of his team members were actually in the room. And he told them, he said, the first thing I have them do is open up an individual investment account. He said, if they don't do it, he said, I fire them. He said, because the most important thing is to actually invest in yourself. You put 10% or whatever you earn into yourself first. And my wife and I actually had this conversation last night even. She was reading this book, and she did this exercise where she drew a box and put all the people that are most important in this box, in her personal life. And then she put drew another box, and all the people she felt that depended on her. And she compared the two boxes and realized that, wait a minute, I'm exerting all my energy. I'm giving, right, to all these other people, and they're not reciprocating that energy back to me. So in essence, they're depleting her strength as a woman and as a person and as an energetic force, which trickles into the box that was most important to her, which was actually her family and et cetera. And so it was interesting, that you mentioned that, and then having that relation, that conversation with my wife, just last night. And I agree. And I agree that we give really with the expectation of receiving when we're down on our luck as well. And so that's kind of unique. We're about to wrap up the show. What would be your parting message to the Keep It Moving audience?
Well, my parting message would definitely be to take some time to connect with you. Make your self-care a priority. I know that a big part of our purpose is to, unite with others and connect and to serve, right? I believe in that. But we can serve better when we have more to give. And I think that by giving yourself the time, the care, the wellness, you're also positioning yourself to be able to show others a good example of self-care and eliminate the obligation of like taking the ego out of the whole giving component, like giving with the expectation of receiving. You're able to give more genuinely. So make your self-care and your wellness a part of your training for your service to others, so that you can be an example for others to see, so that people are taking responsibility for their health and their wellness, because nobody can take care of you like you can.
Right. And with that being said, April, I want to thank you for being on the show. I want to add one little thing to that. Giving. I think a lot of times what people do is they give more than they have. And when it comes time to give, they don't know how to say no to giving. And I think that's important, just for the listeners and the audience, that, give, but give what you can afford to lose, and give what you have, but also have the fortitude and the strength to say, no, I can't give. I don't have it. and know that it's okay and there's no need to have this guilt trip. So without further ado,
I think that's important.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think that that's really important too. And I think that one of the things, you'll be able to easily discern who's necessary to keep in your life and who's not. Because like the example that you mentioned with your wife, people who want to see you really do well and they really have your best interest at mind, they're going to be replenishing you as well. And they don't want to see you depleted. They want you to be honoring yourself. So that's an indicator for you. If you honor yourself and someone now no longer wants to be a part of your community or your life, then that tells you something about them right there. You know, it tells you that they are not someone that you want to have in your a part of your circle anyway. So you let the universe do the work for you.
Yes, agreed, and very well said. So without further ado, hey, ladies and gentlemen, that's April Diane coming straight out of Queens, New York. And what's your website?
Long Island, New York. Long Island, New York.
Long Island.
Yes,
Okay.
I teach in Long Island and Queens. Yes, sir.
Okay.
But I'm from Long Island.
Okay.
Born and raised.
Born and raised. My wife grew up in Brooklyn, so I'm biased to Brooklyn.
Oh, and my mom is from Brooklyn, so she would relate. My website is www.creatingthehabitofwellness.com.
Okay. And your email, how can they contact you?
They can also email me at creatingthehabitofwellness@gmail.com.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that was April Diane. Hey, if you enjoy the show, make sure you subscribe at ivanhunt.com, or you can go to Podbean and look up Keep It Moving with Ivan Hunt. And you can email me at keepitmoving@ivanhunt.com or coach@ivanhunt.com. With that being said, hey, coming live from Miami, Florida, this is Keep It Moving. Peace.